Recording is in progress because I am here with two of my favorite Australians ever. Also in that list, Crocodile Dundee, of course, and Kylie. There's probably a few others. Kylie and Danny Minogue both.
Absolutely. I'm glad you included Danny.
Yeah, I love a bit of Danny Minogue. Emma
Hi,
and Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us both together.
So basically, this all came because we were hanging out poolside in Miami at the Zibby retreat. And I was like, you know what would be better than talking to you guys here by the pool? Talking to you guys for everyone in the world to listen to about everything happening in your life.
Well, it's a pity that we're not in a Miami pool right now, isn't it? But it's lovely to see you online.
You
We
do.
had such a good time. We just hit it off, didn't we, immediately?
We really did. And I mean, I suspect that happens to you both with a lot of people, though, because you are truly delightful. And your book, The Last Love Note, which came out in November, has just been sweeping the nation. I mean, I can't even keep up anymore, Emma, with all the great things that are happening with it. But the thing I do love reading is how people have connected with the book and seeing those reader quotes online. They also kind of make me cry even though it's not my book.
It has been just, I think, there's when you publish a book, you've got so many doubts and fears coming into it. And in this case, I also had a lot of anxiety about the fact that I was talking about grief and loss, having lost my husband a few years ago. And to have just been embraced the way I have been by American and Canadian readers and Australian readers, of course, has been so heartwarming, so delightful. And it is always those little stories of a personal connection that you make with someone that is what you remember. It's not the book launch or the book tour, even though that was fabulous. It
Mm.
was it was individual people that I met along the way that really made a mark and that are still doing that. Even today, I had a message from one of the readers who I mentioned in that post, who had shared with me her husband's last love notes to her on post-it notes. And then we had a conversation about the loss of both our husbands, and that's the sort of thing that it's giving me an opportunity to talk about. So it's been pretty special.
So you guys made book tour a family affair. You came over to the US, you went on some crazy road trips. I mean, Hannah, what was your experience like kind of being on this incredible trip with your mom, even before the book came out, just being in America, being together and having this adventure?
I mean, The Last Love Note is a book that is really hard won for our family just because it is rooted so much in mum's own personal experience. And I suppose how us as a family unit have made it through the last 7, 8 years now
Mm.
together. So it really was beautiful to be able to bring Seb, my little brother, who is 13, along on his first big international holiday and show him the States. And that is a place that his dad loved so dearly.
Yeah.
So it was really incredible to be able to show him how spectacular New York was and is, and experience all of the different sites of America. And I think what was really fantastic about the tour is that we got to go to so many small little parts of America that we otherwise never really would have had the chance to experience, like Irvington, Virginia being probably a highlight for both of us. A
Yeah.
tiny little town of 400 people that, you're never really going to have the opportunity to go to as a tourist.
It looked like a Hallmark Christmas movie
Oh my
in
God.
real life. It was that sort of place. And it was just delightful. And there's, as Hannah said, a population of 400 people. And I think 40 came to the talk, which is sort of 10% of the
10%. That's amazing.
So it was amazing. And the book community there is extraordinary. Lisa from the bookshelf Irvington moved from New York and started this little online bookstore and this little book group that's just grown. And it was the warmest. I mean, it was a cold night, but it was a beautiful, warm atmosphere. And I just wish we could join their book group every month. It was that kind of thing.
That's so cute.
So just beautiful. There was so many things like that. I mean, there was a Miami book fair where we met you and had an amazing time. And then speaking at the New York Public Library was just a highlight. Oh, look, our dog has come to join the
Oh,
chat.
hello, Precious. This is why it's for these moments that we do a video version of this podcast as well.
Normally he's running around as soon as a Zoom call starts. But so yes, it was just such a varied trip, and we just had an amazing time. And of course, ending up at Zibby's bookstore in Santa Monica is just another dream. So feel really, really fortunate to have written a book that has the potential to reach a wide audience, because grief is something that every single one of us will face if we've ever loved somebody.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like the conversations that people are having now around grief were happening when you first went through your loss? Because it does seem to me like it's more in the public eye, but I don't know if that's just because I'm paying more attention to it. You know, like when you're engaged and then you notice everybody else is engaged, or you're pregnant, you notice everybody else is pregnant. Like, do you actually think there's been an uptick in people speaking more openly about their grief, or is it just that I've woken up to it at this moment?
It could be just that people are being more open about things on social media. I certainly felt at the time, and it was only, 7 or 8 years ago now, that I was searching for information. When somebody dies, when your life partner dies in midlife and you're widowed, I mean, to me, the term widow just felt alien. I thought, well, that's for old women, not someone who was 42 at the time. And so I did feel quite alone until I found another group of young widowed people in my area who were amazing, very supportive. But I hope that the conversation is changing, and I certainly find that every talk I do, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of hugging, because it's just something that we all experience. And I lost my mum as well, about 6 months ago, and I noticed going around on this tour that I'm able to speak about Jeff in a way that where I can hold it together. And
Yeah.
I've been speaking about Jeff now like this for all that time. But whenever I mention mum, that was when I would find my voice faltering and
Yeah.
tears from my eyes. And it's just the freshness of that grief. And my lesson this year, or last year, was that just because you've been through grief once, a really big loss, doesn't mean you're equipped for the next one, because every relationship that we have with people is different. Every one of our personal connections brings a different kind of grief when we lose it.
Yeah, it's not like you're building up an immunity over time,
No,
getting better at
I
it.
did, we did learn a lot about how to handle ourselves, and, how to be compassionate with ourselves. And I think in that way it was easier second time around, but it's just a different loss.
I mean, I also wonder if part of it is knowing you can get through it, knowing you're going to survive it.
Yeah.
When you go through something really traumatic and you come out the other side, the next time you go through something really traumatic, you at least can say, okay, well, this is horrible now, but maybe one day it won't be so horrible. And I'm not really sure if that's helpful at all, but it does sometimes help me, like, okay, I survived that, I can survive this sort of thing.
It's like the feeling of coming through childbirth and thinking, if I survive that, I can survive anything.
But I'm sure Hannah's birth was just absolutely nothing went wrong, and it was a total delight.
I was dramatic. I was a C-section.
And we were talking about that just today, that 25 years later, occasionally I get a little reminder about Hannah's birth. But it's, yeah, there is definitely something about having gone through your worst fear or something really, really difficult. It makes you, for a start, just let go of caring about a whole lot of stuff that used to seem important, isn't. It also makes you value things a lot faster and a lot more. And so the things that really matter. And I think for me, it has helped me to think, well, if I want to do something or go somewhere or try something, why not? Life is short. So there's this real learning in just the time that we don't necessarily have ahead of us. And throw things out. I mean, I've got this chart on my kitchen wall that we all sort of look at and contribute to about risks and chances to
Mm-hmm.
take this year. It's a chart with 100 spaces for various different risks and chances, and just to try and get comfortable with failure and rejection. I think that's so important to demonstrate for the kids.
I'm obsessed with that. I mean, Hannah, do you feel like you've internalized a lot of that in your own life? Has it helped you be someone who's better able to be risky? I think about this all the time. Like, are my kids going to be, well, are they actually going to learn from all the mistakes that I made, or are they just going to have to make them all over again?
I'm not sure. I feel as though I have so like the experience of going through, I suppose, my stepdad passing away, it was at a very critical time for me. I was in the middle of year 12, my final year of school. So I feel as though that certainly forced me to grow up quite quickly in a way that my peers might not necessarily have. But I'd say that it really instilled in me a sense of resilience that I have taken forward into other aspects of my life. And then I also have mum setting the most incredible example, just putting herself out there at every single opportunity that she can. I am a very rejection sensitive person. So that's something that I'm really trying to overcome this year. And I suppose having her as a role model who is out there, like walking the walk when it comes to this sort of stuff is very helpful. And I suppose, I think it's good to learn to sit with failure. That's something that I hope to be able to do.
It's a
Watch
good
this
goal.
space for a years' time.
So is it 100 collective family risks and rejections?
It is. I mean, I set that for myself, but what I like to do is get my son, for example, to write up on the chart things that I have done, because he also finds a bit of a challenge in getting feedback at school and that kind of thing.
Mm.
So, but this is certainly something that I wasn't good at before that I've learned, and it's by doing this and putting things out there and realizing, that it's almost a numbers game. The
Yeah.
more things there, the less you care about each individual thing in a way. So it takes the sting out of it a little bit, but you also learn over time. I mean, last year, my success and failure rate was 40% successes and 60% failures on my
That's pretty
chart.
good, actually.
Yeah, I thought so. And I think, but at the same time, I think it's really great that the kids are looking at that and seeing it's not everything you touch turns to gold. They've seen me have years of struggling and as any writer will tell you, that the rejection roundabout that you go through as a writer,
Yes.
that is, and also having a piece of creative work out there and being thick-skinned enough to be able to tolerate reviews and all of that sort of thing. That's all something that you learn with practice over time.
I think it's a muscle that you have to develop. And I was more like, what did you call yourself? Failure sensitive. Like that was
Rejection
absolutely
sensitive. Yeah.
rejection sensitive. I really, really hated being rejected. And then when I started writing, I realized, oh, well, rejection is just part of this game.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, I remember I queried so many agents for my what if year that I would get these rejections through, and I like had forgotten that I had queried those people. I had to go back to my spreadsheet and be like, oh, right, I did. Because, if you're not getting rejected, you're not doing it right, basically. Like you're not putting yourself out there enough. And it's a good lesson to teach kids because it links back to resilience, right? Like that is, part of resilience is being able to get back up when you fail. So I love that you're doing that. What are they all professional risks and chances, or some of them personal?
Well, at the moment, they're all professional, but last year I had other things on there, like I'm obsessed with the Aurora Australis and taking photos of it. And for 7 years, I tried to capture this and failed every single time. And Hannah was dragged out on a lot of these expeditions earlier on. And we'd go into the middle of nowhere in the dark, and I didn't know how to use the camera, didn't understand how the solar flares even work. So there probably wasn't an Aurora to even capture. And then I occasionally would go out on my own and I'd get spooked and I'd race home and not even try. But 7 years after doing this, I finally succeeded. And now I've captured that something like, I don't know, 14 or 15 times.
Wow.
Put that up. And if I went back into the dating scene, I could almost use it for that. I could put that up. It doesn't
Oh
really
my
matter.
God.
It's just
That's a
about getting
book.
in.
That's a book right there, actually.
Yeah.
That is a book.
Yeah.
That
We
is
can
a book right
co-author
there.
that.
Add it to your next
do a
book.
mother-daughter dating book. Hannah is an expert in online dating. She's doing a doctorate.
By that, she means I'm not an expert online
No.
dater.
No.
I'm researching online dating.
Oh,
for my
okay.
PhD.
I preferred it the first way, but this way is also good.
So yes, that could be an interesting book, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Generation gap online dating.
I think that would be an amazing book. I would read that book for
I don't
sure.
want to do it. That's the only thing. In fact, I watched a video that someone sent me about a mother who was a widow with sort of young girls like, this age or a bit younger. And they posted her having a complete meltdown and she was yelling, everybody in the world is boring. And it was that, she'd lost her husband and nobody else was good. And she kept repeating this. And I thought, I love this woman. I completely agree with her. Everybody is boring. Present company accepted. And then but then there was all these comments underneath the post saying, how could you allow yourself to become so emotional in front of your children? And I thought, that is disturbing, that because these kids have seen me completely lose it and have meltdowns many times, and they know that I recover and they know that it's a healthy thing to do. So yes, we could put together quite a lot of meltdowns and we could probably have our own sitcom.
We could, it wouldn't even be reality TV.
Do you think that's a generational thing? Like, did you see your parents melt down in front of you, Emma? I never did.
No, I didn't. And I remember my sister and I thinking that our parents were sort of perfect parents, very patient parents. And then we had children and thought, what is wrong with us? Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
And I remember we'd cry and we'd get, exhausted. We wouldn't know what we were doing. We'd do things wrong. And then one day we said to Mum, why was it so much easier for you? And she said, it wasn't. She said, you didn't see all the times I was crying in the shower. And we both looked at each other and thought, if only we had, we wouldn't feel this. I think it helps them to see that life is a struggle at times, and that's normal, and that you just pick yourself up and go on, and that you ask for help and all that sort of thing.
I mean, you guys do have this very like Lorelai and Rory Gilmore close relationship. It seems that's by the way the highest compliment I could pay anybody. So yeah, I mean, do you ever fight? You don't, do you?
Oh my goodness. Hannah has recently moved back in temporarily, and she just had a week in Sydney house sitting someone else, and we both really enjoyed that week.
Yeah. Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
So okay, but like, is it like, what do you fight about? Laundry?
I think, look, I love my mum. I just think that we spent the entire book tour together, living in very close quarters, closer than I think any family unit could withstand for as long as the two of us and my 13-year-old brother, three of us in a hotel room. Sounds like a party, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
But so we traveled for that whole month together, and then I guess I have been temporarily back at home, and we're kind of living out of each other's pockets. And I think, that comes with having an argument or two here and there. But I think I definitely still will miss Mum when I do move back out. And I think I am certainly grateful that we have the kind of relationship where when I did need somewhere to stay for a short period of time, the door was always open. And there is probably a lot of people in the world who aren't close with their parents and don't have that ability to lean on them in times of need. So I am certainly very grateful for that. But she does know I love her at the end of the day. I did see this quote the other day that said, remember to be kind to your mum because it's her first time living life too.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that, thinking about like what you were saying before about how you thought that your mum had it all together, like growing up. I think that quote's really important and really hits home, because like here I was thinking that you were perfect my whole first few years of my life when I was really little. And I think it's, really important to understand that we're all humans, we're all going through it, and parents aren't picture perfect, and they do, not that I haven't seen your struggles, because we've both picked each other up off the bathroom floor many a time. But
it's been really lovely to have you back, because we've been doing things like in the mornings we'll go out and sit on the veranda and both do our work together, and and with
Aw.
one of our neighbors as well. And we've just, like, there's so many lovely parts. And Hannah's just cooked a delicious dinner. She's a really great cook.
Oh,
And
so she's
that
useful to have around. That's good.
she's useful. Well, she's useful, but she also makes a big mess. So, it swings and roundabouts. But her company is beautiful. And, I'm hanging out with a teenage boy who is a gamer. So I get the occasional, that's it for the whole
Yeah.
day. It's nice to have somebody who talks. But yeah, it is lovely. And I think that quote that you just said has absolutely touched me. Like that is
Beautiful.
so true. And it's not only about the fact that we don't know what we're doing at all, like that we're making it up as we go along as parents. It's that we are people too. And Hannah's really good at that. She and her sister Sophie, who's 23, so they're 2 years apart, are my chief supporters. And they, we talk through the career stuff and the challenges and the personal stuff. And it's, they say not to be friends with your children, but they only mean when they're little. We are now all friends, and it's really just something I'm so grateful for. I just adore it. So hopefully she'll move out very soon so we don't wreck that.
Fingers crossed.
I remember I still like not even envious, but the part of child rearing that was most exciting to me was the idea of having grown up children. Like, I'm not really a baby person. And, obviously we got through it. Like, it was fine. And now they're adolescents, and that brings its own interesting challenges. But the idea of kind of having these adult children to hang out with that you really like just always seemed to me like such a fun thing. I think if I could have skipped all of the early parts and just gone to that stage, I would have had like 5 kids.
I remember one time a few years ago, we were going out to lunch, probably after a doctor's appointment that I made mum come to with me. And she goes, Hannah, I've just realized that the whole point of having children is so that you can go out for lunch with them on a weekday.
It was
100%. That sounds
motivation.
great.
Yeah, it was this amazing realization. This is another adult. And yes, she's a bit less experienced than me, but in other ways, I'm less experienced than her. And I can't tell you the amount of times over in the US that I don't think I would have made it through without her. She did all the driving, and, she's just even using Instagram, all that kind of stuff, that you just going, what am I doing here? I'm starting to feel that way. I'm turned 50 and I feel like I've lost my capacity to follow the world half the time. But Hannah, the younger generation, they're so switched on. And I was leaning on her a lot just to get around, because during that book tour, I was obviously talking about a lot of really emotional things. And I had a lot it was a big deal for me emotionally to do that. And to be talking about a book that came about as a result of, the biggest loss I've ever had. And it would have been I was thinking about it afterwards, it would have been a lonely book tour on my own to have gone around and done about the kids. Somebody said at one of the book clubs, the one in Irvington, they mentioned the fact that I was talking really openly about loss in front of my kids, but particularly my younger son, my son who's 13. And was that they were kind of angling to say, do you think that's appropriate? That kind of, and I thought, there is nothing these kids haven't seen. They were here when Jeff died, that you can't remind them of it. You can't, it's already front of mind. They know they've been through the worst. Talking about it is really important.
Yeah. Guys, we could go on all day. I think actually I would like to figure out. So I'm pretty much your age, Emma, so I don't know how you would adopt me into your family. Maybe I could be like a surrogate sister or something like that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I want to move in with you guys and start a TV show and be on a sitcom and do the 100 dates. We just won't tell my husband about that part. The rest of it will be
No,
fine.
but you can do friend dates. I've seen that people are doing like 50 dates in a year, and they just like are meeting new friends. And Bumble, not to plug them, but love Bumble. They have a BFF feature, which is like for when like you move to a new city and you don't have any friends, and it's about like finding like-minded
Oh my God,
individuals
what a
to
good
connect.
idea.
Very cool. So we can just do it in that capacity.
I feel like I need to do an Australian tour. It's happening.
You
It's
do.
happening in my life.
You do.
Certainly.
I can't wait. Oh, both of you, thank you so much. Last love note you can get. Emma's got more books on tap that are coming your way. Your next one is out. Do you have a pub date for it yet?
It'll be November, I think, this year. Pictures of You, it's called.
So you're basically just going to have to do every Thanksgiving in America, I guess, is what
I
you're
think
saying.
so. Well, I think
A book
really
each November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're thinking about that. It just would make the most sense for us to live in New York full time.
Sounds great.
Watch this.
Can't wait. Thank you guys. Loved having you on.
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Alisha.